welcome back everyone to another episode of course, as you can see, Hearts of Iron 4, Brazil. And you can see that I'm speeding up everything and I'm recording this after the fact. That is because this playthrough is just taking so incredibly long to finish because of the way it's working out to be. And basically what I'm going to have to do is just kind of have a couple of episodes like this where I'm just commentating on the fast forward. But after that, I intend to actually finish the playthrough by streaming the last remaining parts, because that makes it a lot more bearable, I think, to have like a long kind of video. Is if I'm streaming it, you know, it's both easier on me and a lot easier on you to watch. And yeah, as you can see, I finished off that pocket finally in and around Minneapolis. The problem at this point is starting to get essentially enough divisions to cover the whole front, because the Americans are being bolstered by the Canadians and the Russians. And so what my strategy is to clear up as many pockets as possible and then try to push up towards the East Coast. However, as you will see, this strategy does get a little bit, a little bit thwarted. The enemies are still trying to push with their main line down south, but we have managed to outflank Florida, and now we have a few units in and around the enemy landings in Central America that we're trying to use to repel those, because if I can't retake the sort of road to the Panama Canal that right now the Allies have blocked, I mean, I call them the Allies, the Entente. If I can't retake it, then I can't really move up my reinforcements that I'm training up in Brazil itself. So as you can see, I finally managed to knock out, well, maybe not knock out, but encircle a lot of enemy divisions, 15 American divisions plus a few other ones in a big pocket. So that's pretty great. But yeah, you can see the road. And by the way, I'm sorry if this is very complicated and hard to watch, but hey, it's actually ×4 speed, so it's not that fast, but yeah. And yeah, finally that pocket has been sort of destroyed in detail, and now our units are moving up. So that's actually 23 divisions overall, so pretty good. Somehow Salt Lake City is still under enemy control, and the enemies in Florida are down to those two provinces. One of them is a port, however, so I'm trying to just take it. Problem is, of course, jungle terrain in Florida is very, very difficult to deal with. Finally, I can move my units to a front line, which is pretty much a blessing at this point. And alright, so I'm also trying to destroy Paramaribo and that little enclave of Caribbean Federation territory, which I've been working at pretty much this entire war, but oh well. Now I'm also trying to rally up my fleet, which is starting to get pretty big. And that's, of course, quite great. And as you can see, like right now, I'm having to move up that armor division to Ecuador because they can't really move past. So they're going to join the fight there. Or maybe I'm going to have them naval transport on the western coast, because the western coast is free of enemy ships, whereas the eastern coast is pretty much under enemy control, despite the presence of my fleet. Alright, as you can see, some of the enemy units somehow have been, well, forced out of supply. I'm not sure by what or how, but I'm taking advantage of that. And I'm trying to micromanage my air force as best as I can, as you can see. Trying to avoid overlaps in the airfields as much as possible. Unfortunately, the enemies do decide to push in against my units in Florida after my attack fails, and that's going to be pretty dangerous. Now I try to surround Detroit, which contains a lot of American divisions. And I've got my tanks, as you can see, working towards the plains sectors to the east of the city, and I do manage to get a nice surround. So that is pretty much around 15 more American divisions trapped in a pocket, and I'm going to have my armor move up all the way to Buffalo in the northeastern United States and Toronto in Canada, trying to surround some more enemy units, but they managed to escape, unfortunately. Still, it is a good victory for me, and now I am, as you can see, assigning my armor to a front at Buffalo so that they can move to the East Coast and try to cut off some American units along the way. And over there, I finally see that that pocket of 15 units can be taken care of. Salt Lake City is also finally going to fall to our forces, I think, at least. And yeah, I'm just trying to shave off some elements of the front line as much as possible every time I fight. And alright, as you can see, I break through Buffalo. It takes a while, but I do manage to get through. And I've got a lot of armor there. The problem, of course, is that they can continuously strategically redeploy units to face my units that are advancing. So my units just kind of slowly but surely get whittled down in their organization, and, well, they can't really progress any meaningful way. In the meantime, of course, they seem to have reduced their forces up north, so that was why I was attacking there pretty heavily. And alright, yeah, just getting some more research. As you can see, I'm advancing pretty much on all fronts. And I'm trying to get that encirclement in that forest. But as you can see, they just continuously bring up more reinforcements, which is, well, very annoying to deal with. I might still be able to get that encirclement, however. I decide to cancel all the armor's orders because they were just a hindrance at that point. And I'm coming in with the last remaining units. I think I'm going to be able to shut that pocket down. There we are. Amazing. That's just 3 divisions, but 3 divisions is better than 0 divisions. And I'm also pushing up in the north, the extreme north, trying to get control of as many states and surround as many units in the frozen wastes as possible. And here I try a bit of a push, but it doesn't work. They just have way too many defenses with the mountains and the jungles as well. Finally, the armor division's on the other side, and I can bring it up. And as you can see, my armor that was previously advancing so quickly is now bogged down by a lot of American units. And I need to protect my flanks pretty hard, otherwise I'm going to get myself surrounded, and that would be, well, not very good. At this point, with so many fronts, or, well, such a big front, really, to manage, it's also starting to become pretty hard to manage the way the front lines are being set up by the AI. Even harder than it was before. And I noticed that, for some reason, they have emptied out that sector of the front, so I just kind of come in and take as much as I can. So all of these units, as you can see, are Argentinian Lend-Lease, or not really Lend-Lease, but request forces, and so their effectiveness is pretty much, well, not guaranteed. But I can do some good things with them, like get some local encirclements and all of that. Of course, they're pretty good at defeating enemies that aren't there, so if the ground is empty, doesn't matter if it's a tank division or an Argentinian puppet troop. And as you can see, I'm trying to surround Pittsburgh at this point. And my allies are trying to flood into the territory that I've taken. Gotta say, very helpful. At least, you know, Chile and Mexico were very helpful. The other allies, maybe not so much. But I keep seeing, you know, troops from Chile and Mexico pretty much all over whenever I fight. So that is good. And alright, as you can see, I'm trying to close that encirclement. And now I am trying to push up to Edmonton. Who did they just puppet? I'm trying to see what's happening with the Entente, but it looks like they've annexed Austria. And Yemen is left against the world. Now they're the only Mitteleuropean power left. As you can see, my 2 light tanks get surrounded. So I desperately start to try to break them out in any kind of way possible. And they seem to have kind of left that whole area open, so might be able to do that. And they bring in yet more forces in Florida, which is weird. That American division decides to die. I should have attacked that unit that was going to Pittsburgh, actually, with my light tanks. If I had done that, then I think I would have been able to take Pittsburgh and relieve my armor. But as it stands, as you can see, I'm just trying to outrun the enemy infantry, and it's just not working because they somehow are faster than my armor. And so they just kind of pin my units into the gap. I try to get a flank off, but as you can see, they bring in about 10 divisions to stop my advancing mediums from the east. And then the mediums themselves are now at a risk of being surrounded, so that's of course not very good. As you can see, that just leaves a couple of Mexican divisions protecting the only supply route to the medium armor. So I'm starting to have to pull back. Otherwise, well, things are not going to be looking all that good. And unfortunately, my armor is not going to make it out. So that's just a couple of tank divisions, but still, I would rather not lost them. And here I'm trying to fiddle around with my carrier, because it just kept wanting to take the eastern coast route, which would have been a bit of a disaster. Because an unescorted carrier just kind of moving through probably would have been picked off. My armor is now dead. However, my tanks, you know, in the, I guess that would be near Philadelphia, so like the New Jersey? No, not New Jersey is a little bit up northeast. Massachusetts kind of pocket over there. Yeah, it can still move in. The problem is there's no enemies to surround, so that's kind of bad. And somehow the Canadians and, you know, allies start to flood in a massive swarm of units through the lakes. So I have to kind of put blocking to that. Just kind of avoid getting myself surrounded in the area of Toronto. I finally can bring in some more forces at Paramaribo. And I keep trying to attack into that whole place, but it's not really working out. It's not really working out either in my favor or anyone's. I do manage to get us around on a few Canadian, I think there were units, which is great. And there they go. My armor's still pushing in the area of Pittsburgh, so Pennsylvania, but hey, the terrain over there is actually surprisingly difficult. There's a lot of forest, and there's the mountains. I believe those are the Appalachians. And so it's really not that easy to push with armor, but it's not like I can push with anything else. They decide to pull their units out of that port down there. That means that I can surround those Americans in Florida that were giving me so much trouble. Yes, I tried a very, very cheeky move of cutting off this whole sort of southern pocket from Washington, but it doesn't work. However, I can still push into the empty sort of wastelands. There we are. My whole group is now ready to, I guess, reduce the pocket with 6 American divisions left over there. At this point, I decided to make a different army to have the Paramaribo attacking force housed, so that I don't have to activate the plans of both the units facing the Colombian landing, I guess, and Paramaribo, so that I have a little bit more flexibility. There goes 4 American divisions. However, yeah, it seems like they're trying to counterattack over there. It's not going to work. My armor is going to be able to destroy them. And I activate the plan. The reason I activated the plan there is because the AI is somehow very, very good at defeating really packed up enemies. What I mean by that is, like, sometimes the AI will just put, or you will just put, like, 20 divisions in a few states and just kind of hope that that works. Of course, combat with makes it pretty difficult for that to work all the time, because sometimes those 20 units just simply can't all join a fight. And if you can have less units but rotating in and out of a combat, you will actually defeat that opposing force. And the AI sometimes is particularly good at that. It will lose a lot of men doing so, but hey, it's better to lose some men and then take the enemies down with you than just kind of to let the enemies have a foothold. As you can see, I finally managed to get a nice place to push. Not sure what I'm fiddling around with my supplies. And yeah, thank you to, I don't remember who it was, but he made me a suggestion that I should have requested territory from Mexico. And I'd forgotten that that was a feature. But I do remember at some point during this episode. So yeah, thanks you for that suggestion because, yeah, I mean, I did it before you actually commented, but yeah, it was a very, very good idea that I should have done earlier because I can make much better use of the industrial capacity than the AI can. And now I can finally try to take Paramaribo, which is, well, feels pretty good because that little place was annoying. And now I can finally advance in the sort of southern areas of the United States. I try once again to deal with that. Somehow, as you can see, they have 10 supplies. This sometimes the AI really pisses me off because they have supplies where they shouldn't. And it really just drives me bonkers sometimes. Alright, I finally managed to reach the East Coast near Norfolk, and what that means is that, well, essentially that entire sort of region of America is getting encircled away from Washington, which is, of course, quite great for us. And the Nationalist French somehow land 20 divisions in, I believe that's the Belen state or something. I'm not, Belem, maybe with an M. I think that's the state that got invaded. Still, they've seemed to have managed to force through my garrison with a naval landing, which is, of course, not really the best. And alright, as you can see, that entire area of essentially from Virginia to looks like might be, I don't know, my American geography doesn't exist. But yeah, essentially from Virginia all the way to Charleston. So that would be, I don't know, I just don't know. I'm trying to see if I can like spot it out in the massively quick footage, but no, I do not know. And in Norfolk, they've decided to pull in a massive swarm of divisions and evacuate them from the sea. So the great evacuation of Norfolk is going to be successful for the Americans, but that leaves us with the port itself. And the last remaining enemy port is about to be captured by my armor. So that leaves around 10 American divisions fully surrounded and a lot of territory under our control. I choose a battlefield support chief of staff, which is, well, from all of the Air Force ones, I believe it's going to be the most useful because those close air supports are really helping with my military operations in the American continent. Alright, I finally grab all the coastline, and now it's just about time to mop up the last remaining enemy units. Essentially what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take the cities because those are the ones that are going to be providing even a slight bit of supply to them. And as you can see, they've still got that kind of snake of units over there that's not really doing anything too useful. I continue to try to advance up north, and their units seem to be quite, well, quite troubled by the lack of supplies over there. So it's working out quite well, to be completely honest. What am I doing with my carriers? I guess I'm trying to get them across the Panama Canal and into, you know, the Bay of Mexico, where I've got my other ships. It looks like I've got 3 carriers at this point, but more are coming. There's another one just, you know, just coming in from Brazil. So really, my navy is starting to become quite decent. The problem is it lacks numbers. Like, it may have the carriers and the carrier aircraft, but it doesn't really have the numbers of escort ships. And somehow my battleship is still alive, which is quite flavorful. It's good to have the battleship survive the entire campaign. May still die later, but for now it's still alive. And as you can see, that massive pocket is now starting to finally be reduced a little tiny bit. And yeah, basically at this point, it's just a bit of a mop-up operation. This is, by the way, taking forever because, in part, there's just a lot of enemy units. And because of that, yeah, as you can see, like, the Americans have already lost 3 million men in this war. And partially because, as you can see, the game is up to 1947, which is probably the longest I've ever played a Hearts of Iron 4 match. And, well, everyone has, like, thousands of divisions. So the game is very, very slow at this point, to be completely honest. So, yeah. It's taking a while. And now I think this is a... Yeah, I think I stopped the recording earlier, and now this is the newest sort of session. But still, I'm still doing the same things. I don't know why there's no music. Guess I can add some in. So if you're hearing music, that means I've added in. Which, I mean, that's fine. Now I'm trying to go for Toronto, because as you can see, they're pushing in some units over there, and I'm not really happy about that. Now I'm trying to sort of advance in the East Coast as well, but I see that it's really, really not going to happen. And now finally I do the request territory thing. So that's... Finally I've got a little bit of a chunk. As you can see, my industrial capacity already shoots up to 166. It was around 90 before. So that's pretty great. And my push north is going very, very well. Because the enemy units up there may be strong in number, but they just don't have supplies. So I'm able to really easily, even just with my own infantry, surround them. Because they just don't have the option and mobility to move away. Unfortunately, the enemy, with their sort of snake-like push down from the lakes, has taken Detroit. So I'm going to have to protect my flanks. In the meantime, I'm trying to see if I can like scrounge up more units from my coastal garrisons all over South America to push up against the enemy enclaves in Paramaribo and, well, that other place that the nationalist French invaded. And of course, trying to do some shuffling around with my air force just to prevent bad things from happening to my airfields. And trying to get as much close air support coverage as possible throughout the sort of area of operations, which is quite large. I wish that the base game would have updated air zones in one of these patches. Because yes, there are mods that update air zones, but they're mostly just not compatible with any mods that aren't vanilla. At least usually they aren't. And so it really, really is like inconvenient to use them. So I never do. Alright, at this point the Americans seem to be trying to push, but I've got some men trying to destroy a couple of surrounded American units. I finally have some more armor, and now the Russians have joined the fray in the naval invasion of Brazilian territory. So of course not the best possible situation. At this point I've also got some units, as you can see, surrounded near Detroit, but I make a bit of a push to prevent that from escalating further. There we are. Those enemies are destroyed. They somehow leave Detroit unguarded, which allows my infantry to try to move in, and my armor pushes along the western area of the city. Now I finally surround 2 Canadian divisions in the wilderness, and then I just continue to push on those very, very weakened and disorganized enemy forces that are trying to block my path towards the frozen northern waste. And I'm just trying to make as much pushing happen around Washington. Because, of course, again, if I can take that capital, which I've been trying to do for the past, well, like 2 in-game years. So you can imagine how long, like 4 episodes or something. If I can do that, then that would be a very, very great blow to the American both will to fight and their just territorial integrity as a whole. Now finally I can kind of reassess my current position and redeploy my units accordingly. Alright, as you can see, I try desperately to make a push towards Washington, but it does not work. They just have too many units in there, and the urban environment is helping them out quite greatly. Also, even though I have, I think, air superiority around there, for some reason, my planes are just not really coming in and helping out. which is, well, just kind of sad. Of course, as you can see, the Americans keep landing units in Central America, which is very, very aggravating. Here I'm trying to reach the province over there where there's the land bridge between the canal, no, not the canals, the lakes, that is allowing the enemy units to cross. So if I can take that place, then I'm going to effectively surround all the American units that are, or I think that it's actually mostly Indian, so just generally Entente in that province, which would be pretty great. Alright, Detroit is surrounded. I just kind of instantly pounced with all my units that were surrounding it. That, of course, takes out 2 British Indian divisions. Pretty great. More infantry divisions are moving up from the recruiting grounds, of course. New fighters for the cause, and that's quite great. Once again, trying to shuffle around my air force to get the maximum possible efficiency out of my bombers, which is, of course, quite good. And then I try to push against these Russians that are just continuously barreling down towards the south. It kind of works, but they just continue to send reinforcements in, and that province has a fort, so it's not helping my cause with that. And as you can see, like up north, at this point, it's just a slaughter. They're really not able to withstand my units anymore. But they've pulled in massive amounts of units, both around Washington, as they've done before, but also around that sort of little enclave of land near Toronto, which is putting the flanks of some of my armies in danger. But oh well. As you can see, I just keep trying to push up against those units that are moving up, that kind of echelon of advance. But they have so many reinforcements coming in that it's really starting to get hard. Of course, they can't really push against me, but it's not like that matters. Because what I need, rather, is to push against them. Because I'm the one that's gonna lose out eventually. I've got less manpower, and even holding pretty much 95% of the United States, I've still got probably less industrial capacity, because while the Americans are definitely very crippled at this point, they've still got a pretty massive army, and the Canadians still have most of their industry intact. So they can get lend-leased quite quickly by their allies back up to strength, even if we really, really pounce on them. And the Russians are going to have pretty much unlimited resources pouring in from the Atlantic. Because at this point, of course, fighting in Europe has mostly stopped. So, yeah, unfortunate. Finally, I can get a couple of good pushes down in the Southern American battlegrounds, which is going to result in a lot of deadly encirclements for the Entente forces that are very, very badly supplied in the region. As you can see, some Russians are now encircled, some more Russians are close to getting encircled in the jungles, and Caribbean Federation troops are about to get mopped up from that little area, that little strip of Colombia. And finally, that is going to allow me to reconnect by land, you know, not counting the Panama Canal, reconnect by land my American, North American possessions to my South American homelands. Which is, well, exactly what you'd try to do. And Cartagena itself is, well, not having a good day. There's a lot of, looks like nationalist French. I'm doing this from Sony Vegas, by the way, so it's not like, oh, damn, it seems like they took New Orleans. Yeah, I'm doing this from Sony Vegas, so... Oh, actually, I lost a couple of infantry divisions there in that pocket. That's very sad. So I was about to say, I don't really have like the best views of what is going on. Definitely numbers and flags of units of the counters are not really that clear to me. So you're gonna have to bear with me. Big push up north is doing quite well. Surprised. And more units are being sent up to the front against Canada. That is, of course, amazing. Unfortunately, it seems like they've taken both New Orleans and Biloxi. So now they're just going to really be swarming through that whole area. I tried to push east. As you can see, there's massive concentrations of American infantry trying to defend up against it. So what my sort of idea was to try to pin them up against the lake up there. But it's not really working out because they have way too many units. However, I am getting some successes and I'm getting some pushes. Especially in the provinces where there's still a little bit of a plains terrain. Of course, harsher terrain province is not really working out. Finally, Cartagena seems to be falling. Belém is about to be retaken by our troops. And Paramaribo is still very much under pressure. So that is amazing. And as you can see, my pushes up north are failing. They just have too many infantry units around there. Trying to reshuffle some of my production, and I realized that I can probably ask for a few more states. And yeah, it does work out for me. Bringing my industrial capacity up to 235. Of course, that is quite strong. And I've surrounded a lot of Canadians, actually, in the wilderness. So I just try to, as quickly as possible, defeat those pockets. Because those long-distance provinces, you know, up in there in the north, they're so big that it takes forever for our unit to walk from one to the other. So it's not really going to be easy for them to deal with it. And Cartagena finally is recaptured, thus ending that very threatening push that the Caribbeans were putting up against my sort of weaker allies in Colombia. This is going to allow the Colombians, of course, control their state. They can stabilize a little bit better. And at this point, it looks like there's a massive lag spike. Not sure what's happening. Alright, seems to be over. And the Canucks have abandoned the front line. That's something that the AI is doing a lot, really. Just kind of letting me take some frontline territories, then massively redeploying troops from somewhere else into there and trying to squash me. It's really getting annoying. But yeah, Brazil overall seems to be relatively safe from enemy naval incursions. And of course, the Americans pushing inland from Biloxi and New Orleans, their newly captured ports, are leaving them pretty much unguarded. And now I finally spend the army experience in some modern tanks. You know, modern tank upgrades. I'm trying to get some modern tanks fielded, but it's taking a long time. However, I'm also producing quite a lot of modern self-propelled artilleries, which is actually probably stronger than the modern tank, considering what I'm facing, which is mostly infantry. What I need is just lots of ways to kill a lot of Americans. Of course, tanks are pretty great for the breakthrough, but self-propelled artillery with the amazing soft attack is also pretty good. Alright, and now I'm trying to destroy that pocket over there, that mountainous port. I don't know the name. And of course, trying to flank the Americans who are in Biloxi and New Orleans. The Canadians over there in the pockets are dealt with, and I'm still advancing up from Saskatoon and Regina all the way to, I think that's, I don't remember the name of that province. But yeah, it's working okay. And as you can see, I get a bit of a surround off on those Germans, looks like. Yeah, as you can see, I'm looking at Germany because I'm like, what are the Germans doing here? And it's the German Republic puppet. Finally, that port is very invested, and it's going down. The Germans are almost able to retake Biloxi, but with some tactical sacrificial attacks, I can just kind of stop them and retake the ports. And now I am basically mopping up in Southern America, which is pretty great. After that, the only thing that's going to be left is Caracas, and there's the end. So I want to thank y'all for watching. Hope you've enjoyed. I'll see you soon.